sales is the most lucrative skill in the world, period. The problem is most sales advice out there today is outdated, cheesy, and can even keep you from getting the deals that can make all the difference in your career. This is the No BS Sales School, a podcast for entrepreneurs and salespeople who want to master the skill of selling without all the BS. Listen, if you're like me, you hate doing admin crap. Number one, because you're not good at it. And number two, because you know it's taking you away from the stuff that actually makes you money. So why are you doing it? Do what I did. Go to worksby.com right now and let them pair you with a real executive assistant. Once I started working with Cheryl at Worksby, my income went up 40% in 1 month, and my working hours went from 70 down to 40. It's a game changer. Go to worksby.com right now, book a call, and tell them Walker sent you. If you do, you'll get 2 extra hours of service for free as a bonus. So if you're ready to finally stop doing the stuff you hate and focus on the stuff that makes you money, go to worksby.com right now. That's WORXBEE.com. Tell them Walker sent you, and you'll get those 2 free hours. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Walker McKay. Today, I've got a special guest, Adrien Harrison. Adrien, let me read you his bio. Adrien is a serial entrepreneur, startup advisor, founder and CEO of smartcourse.io, an educational technology and digital healthcare startup offering digital solutions like online courses, marketplaces, and a collaborative platform for caregivers of kids with special needs. Adrien coaches and consults hundreds of founders, advising them on building products that matter, finding product market fit, UI, UX design, digital marketing, virtual summits, online course creation, B2B and B2C sales, and growth hacking. He provides an end-to-end solution for aspiring or established entrepreneurs and aspires to run his own venture studio to rival Y Combinator and Tiny Capital. The reason I invited Adrien on the show today, I think I called him for one reason, and we end up figuring out it was a better thing. What Adrien and I are going to talk about today is, what does it mean to be Gen Z millennial? What actually does motivate them? Because Adrien's done all this shit. He's only like, what are you, 22 now? 23? How old are you?
I'm 25. 26, actually. Just
20,
26,
oh, shit. Okay. This is better than you've had plenty of time to do all this. So, Adrien, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for agreeing to talk to me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What the hell does your bio mean in English?
Yeah. So, in English, it's just that I help early stage startup founders be better founders.
Okay. And so, what's your experience with that?
So I started a couple different companies over time, and I've helped through one of my companies. It was an online business consulting firm, dozens of other businesses.
Yeah.
So I helped those entrepreneurs, through that whole process that you just read through. But essentially, like validating an idea, finding a market for that idea, doing marketing towards that market, and then optimizing the sales process.
Got it.
That's pretty much
You're
it.
working on what I loved about talking to you to get this thing set up was what a big thinker you are. And so you and I'm going to talk about how you got here, but you are putting on right now or getting ready to put on a conference, a virtual conference on caregivers of kids with special needs, ADHD specifically. You mind taking us there for a minute, telling us about that, and then I'm going to back up and see how we got there.
Yeah, so it's called the ADHD Summit. It's presented by SmartCourse, which is my ed tech, health tech startup. And so essentially we've got 60 of the world leading experts on ADHD talking at the conference. It's online, it's free from February 1st till February 5th, 2021. And you can watch any of those days sessions. It's over 5 days. So any of those days sessions for 24 hours from when they get released. So yeah, we're super happy with that and proud of it because we basically made, like the best quality content on ADHD in the world accessible to literally anyone with an internet connection. Yeah.
Pretty awesome. I love that. So So what you're telling, if you're listening to this show today, and I assume you are, right, on Wednesday, the 3rd that is published, you can go, if you're interested in ADHD, if you have a childless ADHD, maybe you are yourself, or you know somebody who has a child, there's great content that's going to be there. At the end of the show, we're going to share the place where you can go get the link to go watch that stuff. You can also buy access to it later on.
Yeah.
So in a subscription service that Adrien and I'll talk about as well. The initial reason I talked to Adrien was because I thought we are going to talk about ADHD. And what I found was there was so much more there that was more interesting than ADHD, even though he is an expert on that. Tell me something. So you're a Gen Z, you're right on the border of Gen Z millennial. What does that mean? Where are you? What are Gen Z and what are millennials? What is that? What is that year range? That kind of thing.
I don't know actually. I think the range is something like 1985 or something. Anytime after that, you're considered a millennial.
Millennial.
And then I don't know what the split is with like Gen Z or others.
Okay.
But I mean, what that means is I guess like the category of generations.
Yeah, so I knew that, but I didn't know the breakdown of the actual year that Gen Z started, for example, versus millennial.
I don't know either. Yeah.
So you told me a story earlier that I'd like for you to go through again, the short version about your education and how that led you to what you're doing today. You mind telling the short version of that story?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it as short as possible, but essentially I grew up in New York City. I went to a French school here. The French school system's way more strict than the American school system. I got into a lot of trouble as a kid from preschool onward because I was super curious. I would ask a lot of questions, and that was seen as disrespectful or challenging the system early on. A quick funny story was in my preschool year, so like second year of preschool,
you were
I had
5
a crush
at
on
the
this
time.
girl. Not even. I think I was 4 at the time, and I I had a crush on this girl, and she dared me to cut my hair in class, and I did. It was right there on the spot, and the teacher saw that and like took the lock of hair that I cut off, put it in an envelope, and sent it to my parents, saying, "This is what Adrien's up to in the class.
Holy
So we
cow.
thought you should know." So that was like where it all started, and then from there I would just get into trouble for asking questions, and it wasn't necessarily like doing anything bad. It was just first of all having developed a reputation, so I'd get blamed for things that I wasn't even responsible for, but also because I saw better ways of doing things, and so I'd ask a lot of questions about like why this system was set up in this way, because I wouldn't be able to actually improve it unless I actually knew why that was done the way that it was being done.
Let me stop for a second, because I feel like that is one of the, and I may have read this, I don't know to make this up, but that's one of the things that millennials / Gen Z do that we in the generation before Generation X that nobody freaking remembers, we lived more on tradition, and we did things because they've been done that way. And sometimes we pushed against that, but it was your generation that began to say, so why the hell are we doing that? Which makes you guys, quite frankly, often difficult to manage and to be around. So you stayed at the French school. Tell about your principal.
Yeah. So in middle school, I was with a teacher who particularly had it out for me. And so I would ask a question and she wouldn't even wait. She would just send me straight out of the classroom. And I expected my dean to reprimand me for that. But he was actually this really cool, understanding guy who actually wanted to know more about what I thought about the education system and what I thought could be improved and what I thought about the future of the education system. And so we ended up having like really great, interesting conversations about that. And it got 12. To the point, I was like around 12 or 11. Amazing. And then I I looked forward to getting sent out of this teacher's classroom so I could go talk to the dean about this stuff. And fast forward many years after that. Well, first of all, I like switched schools after my 10th grade. I went to an American boarding school, so I got to see what the American school system was like. Completely different, way better fit for me. And then fast forward a couple more years, went to the University of St. Andrews in Scotland in the UK. So I got to see what the UK's educational system was like, pros and cons there. The way I sum it up is the French school system wants to put you down so that you want to prove them wrong. And that works well for, a very small number of students. And for them, it works great because they're just so angry. They're like, I'll show you.
Yeah,
and
a lot of
that's
the French people you may know now are rather difficult to deal with. I can name a couple, but I won't because they'll get mad at me. But yes.
Yeah. And the American school system will pull you up even if you don't care. And the UK system doesn't really care what you do, but if you do good, then good for you, right? Like good on you.
Yep.
And so fast forward a couple more years after that, I was doing a joint honors film studies, philosophy and management degree at University of St. Andrews. As part of the philosophy school, I learned a ton about just how to think, like how to question what I'm doing and why things are done certain ways, and like why do people live lives in these certain ways. And in the management school, there was a module called Enterprise and Creativity that basically had us build a startup over the course of a semester. And it was just randomly assigned, you 5 college students, go build something, and you're going to get graded on it at the end of the semester. And so I came up with this idea for this art after hours, which was essentially making like art gallery between like local artists in the school cool. And then we were going to donate tens of thousands of dollars that we had raised from that to a local charity. And that was our startup project.
Yeah.
And the way that we got students to come, like back to sales and like what makes effective sales is knowing your market. Our market was college students. What attracts college students? Unlimited alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. Chicks and beer, right?
Exactly. And so that's what we did. We guaranteed unlimited wine if you attended the event. And so we bought tons of bottles of wine. We had all these artists, students, and local artists present their work. And obviously, lots of students came to appreciate the art with some wine, and lots of students came to have unlimited wine. Either way, they had to pay to attend the event. And yeah, so we raised tons of money on that. And then we also took 50% commissions on any artist sales that happened. So that 50 would go to the artists, 50 would go to us. And it was great. It was a lot of fun, super successful. And I fell in love with the process of entrepreneurship after that. And so I knew at that point, I was passionate about 3 things: long-term travel, revolutionizing the education system, and now entrepreneurship. And so I thought, well, I'm just a college student. I don't know how to revolutionize the education system. I wouldn't even know where to start with that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm only 22. I gotta wait till I'm 26 to do that. Yes.
Right. So I was like, all right, well, I should jump into entrepreneurship, because if I do that, then I'll be able to do something about it. I'll learn the skills necessary that I could actually do something about it. And so that started very simply with me just, freelancing. I would help my parents' friends with their tech, how to use their computer or stuff like that. And what I started to realize was that these friends of my parents were baby boomers that had their own businesses, and their businesses were at risk of going obsolete because they looked super outdated, right? They had old websites that looked like 10, 11 years old. They didn't know how to do any social media marketing or any kind of marketing. And so they were reliant on, other freelancers to help their business. And so, I, at the time, I mean, I skipped over some steps here, but I had started a nonprofit with a friend of mine after I took a gap year from college. And that I just taught myself how to build websites. At the time, there were really easy website builders like Squarespace, WordPress, and Wix. And looking at all 3 of them, I saw that Squarespace was the easiest. So I just started with that. And so I would basically, after helping my parents' friends with their tech, say, hey, I took a look at your website and it looks really old. And that you're not gonna be able to compete in the future if you don't update that stuff, because everyone else is gonna look way better. So how about I build your website for you? And they loved that, obviously, because they knew and trusted me already. And so it was easy sale. And I started super cheap. I built websites for like $200 just because I knew early on I wanted to get 3 testimonials of people who absolutely loved me and were willing to rave about me, so that I could raise my rates and then get a bigger and bigger clients. And so that's what I did. And then from there, after building the website, I was like, okay, cool. You got a website now. You got to drive traffic to that website. Do you know how to drive traffic to your website? And they're like, no. Okay, cool. I can do some social media marketing for you. Because although I was no expert on social media at the time, I definitely knew more than they did just by virtue of growing up with it, and therefore had a better understanding of the Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all of that. And so I would propose making their LinkedIn profiles and their Twitters and their Facebook pages and all of that, and I would make
Can I
posts for
stop you
them.
for a second?
Yeah.
So far, you've shared with us this, kind of stream of consciousness, not really, but your story of who you are. And the thing that jumps out at me again now, and it did when we talked the first time, was your ambition, right? Your drive to work and to look for ways to work and make money. What drives you? Do you know what drives you?
I think, it really stems from, and this is something that like I realized when I took my gap year, because so when I got really into entrepreneurship and I knew that I wanted to revolutionize the education system, which is a super ambitious goal, I was
Yeah,
like,
we're gonna talk about that.
this is,
Yep.
yeah, this is going to take a long time. This is going to take a lot of skills. This is going to take a
Yeah.
lot of money. Right. And so early on, right at that point, when I knew that's what I wanted to do, I was like, well, I better get to it because there's going to be a hell of a lot of stuff to do.
Right.
So that's where I think it comes from. It's just like, that's my end goal. And in order to reach that end goal, I need to do as much
But
as I
that comes
possibly
from
can.
it comes from a passion.
Yes,
It comes
absolutely. Yeah.
from, and that's what drives you is, and that's impressed me again, is that it comes from a passion that I want to make a difference in the world,
Yeah.
which is what your generation is reputed to believe.
Yeah. So this is I was about to bring up that the exact point that you just brought up about like how that relates to our generation or millennials and younger. And it's because they're under such pressure to find out something fulfilling, something that's going to make an impact, something profitable slash, that's going to make them rich.
Yep.
And that's impressive to everyone, including themselves. Right. So
Got
these are
it.
like four huge metrics that are completely unrealistic for the first job you're going to get outside of college slash first
Oh
job
yeah.
ever.
You said
And yet that's
fulfilling,
the
profitable. What's the next thing? Fulfilling.
fulfilling, profitable, um, uh, that it's going to make an impact
Yeah.
on the world or like others. And that, what was the last thing I said?
Was it fun? I don't know.
No, it was, that it's going to impress
Yeah.
everyone, including themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Impress.
So
And it's
socially status wise,
and we
is
also
impressive.
said it wasn't just impress, it was not let them down, right? Not
Right.
have your parents go, oh my God, Jimmy's not doing worth a damn, he's only doing this, right? It's
Yeah.
a need,
Right.
it's a fear of that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's like a whole spectrum, right? There's like on the opposite, on like the left end, let's say it's, I need to live up to my parents' expectations. And on the other end, it's I need to live up to everybody's expectations,
Ah,
including my own. And in a lot of cases, these kids are like their own worst self-critic. So it's like not even attainable until they change their mindset, because it'll never be good enough.
right.
So yeah, I mean, it's a really unhealthy way to think about it and look at the problem, because it's completely unrealistic, and that necessitates um, uh, so much work up front and skill upskilling that that's why there are kids who are like just for the hell of it doing a master's or doing a PhD,
Because it
and it's
puts
really
it off.
just to buy them time. It's just
So
to buy time.
so what is it though? Because you and I talked about this. You said, there, and this was to clarify and to add a little more. You said people are afraid they've only got one shot.
Yeah.
Millennials, and if we blow our one shot, we are done for our lifetime. It's over. We'll be a disappointment to ourselves and our family. Where the hell does that come from?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it's in large part social media, because everyone is comparing themselves to the highlight reel of everyone
Yeah.
else, and
Yep.
that highlight reel is completely unrealistic, and it is
Yeah.
depicting people living this successful financial life
Of
that
being an Instagram model.
right, exactly, being an Instagram model, being an influencer that travels the world nonstop but also makes tons of money. And so like all of these things, and there's plenty of fake accounts out there as well.
Yeah.
But there are all real stories of that too. And I was one of those people when I was running Echo Studio, my online business consulting firm, as a digital nomad. So I would like travel the world and run these people's businesses remotely. And I was depicting that on Instagram because that's what was essentially like social proof or proof that this is possible,
Yeah.
and etc. But that puts you in the same bucket as all the people who are just, like renting a Lamborghini and doing that, right? Um, and that sucks. So yeah, I think like, in large part, it's a natural human comparison to their peers, and thinking, therefore, I am not enough unless I can achieve this. But that is an anomaly. It's just
Yeah.
magnified by social media.
So is the backside of that, is it also cancel culture? Where you have one shot, and if you do one thing wrong, you're freaking done too. Is
Interesting.
they related, you think, or don't know?
I haven't thought about that, but it's possible. I mean, it could be that um, it's not like to the same extreme as cancel culture. I don't think that they have like a fear that they're going to get
Canceled, so to
canceled,
speak.
but
Right. Yeah.
right. I do feel though that they definitely fear judgment from their peers. Like, I mean, it depends on the circle, right? I mean, I
Sure.
think the vast majority, right, who are trying to do something that isn't traditionally considered like a soul crushing job just for the money, like investment banking or something
Yeah.
like that,
Yep.
that they're doing something good, or that they're creating impact in some way. And if they aren't, I think people fear judgment from
Right.
that.
So when did you tell me how this, and I love it, revolutionized the education system? When did that, other than the conversations with the
Right.
middle school, Brett, tell me how that kind of came on you. What was up with that?
Yeah. So having built Echo Studio and helped all my parents' friends start their own businesses, I thought, okay, there's something here. I want to take this to the next level. And so I started looking for online courses on the subject. And this whole time I'd been listening to the Tim Ferriss show.
Yep.
Absolutely love that podcast, and really deeply impacted, changed my life entirely. And what Tim does is he just brings on like the world leading experts in their respective fields, and just dissects how they got to where they are. And so I got to learn about tons of interesting subjects that um, I became really passionate about, like stoicism and biofitness and all these different kinds of things. And one of them was online business. This guest came on. His name was Ramit Sethi, and he ran this business. It's the scammiest sounding business ever. It's called I will teach you to be rich.com.
Yep.
And that put up like every single red flag in my brain. And I thought, okay, well, this is really strange, because this person is clearly smart. They know what they're talking about. They've created this business that's very successful, but their name is like the scammiest sounding thing ever. Why would they do that? And so I just dug deeper. I subscribed to his newsletter just to like see what his free content looked like. I looked at his website. I started reading reviews about him. And essentially, like, I came across this interview where he basically said, I want my audience to self-select, right? To filter themselves out. If they see past the name to appreciate the content for what it's worth, that's going to be a much better customer for me in the long run, because they're not going to be as annoying with like customer support or like whatever. They're like bought in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I don't know if that's a great strategy, but that was his strategy,
Works
and
for him.
clearly
Yep.
it worked for him, right? But he had this course called Zero to Launch, and it basically was to teach aspiring entrepreneurs to launch their first online business. And it was really expensive. It was $2,400. And at the time I was like 21 or 20 years old. And
Yep.
so that was a significant amount of money. And I was like, something very strange was happening simultaneously. I was reading his emails, and I kept getting the feeling that he just knew who I was, and
Yeah.
knew where I was at, and
Yep.
knew where I wanted to be. And it's because he did his market research incredibly well, and found out the demographics and psychographics that were ideal for these kinds of customers for Zero to Launch. And he would evince that in his emails to people who are interested in the Zero to Launch course. And here's what was so important about it all. Because of that, he was able to guarantee a result. He was able to say, hey, I know who you are and where you want to be. I know who you are right now and where you're at. This is your point A. And where you want to be, this is your point B. And I've created this product. It's called Zero to Launch, and it's going to take you from point A to point B. And if it doesn't, you get your money back. And that's when it clicked for me that that is what the education system should look like. Because with an online course, you're speaking to a very specific demographic and psychographic, and you're delivering a very specific result that, because of the fact that it's so specific, you can guarantee. And since you're guaranteeing it, you know that you're not wasting money on that education. Whereas contrast that with what's happening today, you've got 18-year-olds or younger being asked to make decisions about getting themselves into hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars in debt without any guarantee whatsoever of being able to pay that debt back, because all they're getting at the end of the day is a piece of paper that says, hey, I went to this school, but you don't need to hire me. I don't need to necessarily get a job. I don't need to pay off this debt. Like, you have no responsibility in any of that.
I just had a 4-year party. No, nothing else happens after that. And my oldest son just got accepted to college, and the tuition is $65,000 a year.
Yeah,
plus beer money.
Insane. It's
and so plus beer money. Forgot that's real money, right? And so and there's some scholarships and stuff like that involved, but it's a ton of damn money, with the idea that I hope he can get a job afterwards. I mean, so that he can get off of my payroll. But how else could I spend, call it $250,000, $300,000 to launch him? There are lots of ways I could do that, right? And we're choosing, again, here I go, following tradition, right? Choosing to go that path because others have, with the belief that that's going to work out well for him. But I can also see somebody else going, shit, if I spent 300 grand on my kid, if I spent 300 grand on my kid, shit, I could buy the best coaches in the world for that and set him up for life. So, so that's interesting.
That was the main disconnect, right? And the fact that, there are many universities that are charging an insane amount, and their degree means like almost nothing, right? Like, so there, it's true for certain professions and certain schools. But that's it. Like, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, and you get into Yale or Harvard or Cornell or whatever, you're going to make a great network from that. And that's what you're paying for. Don't mistake that, right? Like, you could be paying for the curriculum in the law and the health profession as well. But if you're paying for, like, an entrepreneurship degree at USC, for example, which costs like an insane amount, that makes no sense, because you can spend all of that money on just actually trying to be an entrepreneur, taking some online courses that cost a fraction of the price, and
using the rest of it for seed money. Yeah, and using seed money, right? Pay it back.
Yeah.
So what kind of advice, we've talked around this, what kind of advice would you offer to somebody who is looking to hire a millennial into their company? And they want to have a good experience, and let's pretend they hired the right person, but it's beyond that, right? You've got to manage expectations. What is some advice you would give to somebody who's hiring a millennial or wants to?
This is a tough one. I mean, the stakes are so much higher. I mean, at Smart Course, we've got a really wonderful team of interns who are volunteering, and then we incentivize them with commission-based structures, net profit share, bonuses, and if they're sticking around for the long term, just like any other early stage startup, equity in the company. So what they care about is, am I going to be happy here? Am I going to be fulfilled here? Does this work matter? Is it going to pay the bills? And if they're not interested in that job specifically for the long term, what skills am I going to acquire here that are going to allow me to get the next job? So if they're looking at all of this from the get-go, and they're very, very picky, and they're very entitled. This is like 100% the case across the board. So as an employer, my advice would be, what can you do to evince why your organization is going to be more meaningful and more valuable to them than the other organizations out there? The check at the end of the day is not enough. It's like, what is team culture like? What is my flexible schedule going to look like? What's PTO going to look like?
What are we doing, right? What is the mission that we're going after, right? Can they buy it? I feel like that's as strong as anything. So what advice would you give to millennials, or I guess Gen Z now, who are going to get their first job?
My personal advice would be, like, don't fall into the same trap as all the other entitled peers that you have. Because the truth is, right, like, when I have a decision to make between someone who struck me as a slightly entitled versus someone who hasn't, I'm taking the person who isn't at all every
Yep,
time,
yep,
no matter what, even if the entitled person is more skilled.
yep,
Reason being, especially at an early stage startup, you got to grind. You got to be able to hustle. You
yep,
can't be complaining about every little thing that you got to do. And even though they're very smart, like, millennials and younger are like some of the smartest generation
yep.
ever because of the internet and all of that. Um, that comes with an unhealthy sense of entitlement. So what I would say is stay humble, work your ass off, do the research ahead of time, and then yeah, like everything else is great. Find a company that is actually making an impact, because we got to take care of the planet, since we're being
Yeah.
forced to take care of this planet that wasn't being taken care of. So now
Yes.
we're going to be responsible for that. And focus on the companies that are actually making the world a better place. All of that's great. And if you can find some that make you financially happy or successful by your definition, even better.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, like, everyone has to work if you want
Yep.
to be able to provide for yourself and your family.
Yep.
So also keep in mind, like, this is a job. It's not summer camp. It's not like
Yeah.
whatever you want it to be, right? Like, you're not paying to attend something that's a service for you. You
Right.
are working to be able to provide for
One,
yourself and your family.
one of the other pieces of advice you offered that we talked about was this is probably not, it's certainly not the last job you're ever going to have. Right.
Yeah,
Just because you take a job, as I'm making this up, an insurance agent, doesn't mean that 10 years from now you're going to be an insurance agent, because chances are you probably won't be, or starting off in XYZ career or profession. That shit is going to change. There's not some,
100%.
and it should change because the world
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah. There's like, I mean, the gig economy is growing enormously every single year by so much. I mean, I think there was some crazy projections in the next, like, maybe 5 or less years, like half of the workforce would be considered a gig worker in
Wow.
some way. So yeah, like, careers are now considered in the 18-month timeline, right?
Ah,
Like, do 18 months and
yeah.
then you're going to switch and go somewhere else, right?
Interesting.
So yeah, you're going to have like 15 plus careers
Or jobs
if you
within
want.
certain, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 careers. Yeah. I think I've had 5. I can't keep a job anywhere. So it's sort of worked for myself.
There you go.
So take a minute, because I'm winding up here, running out of time. Tell us about, number one, tell us about the conference and how people can find out, and then also how people could get in touch with you if they wanted to.
Awesome. So the conference is the ADHD Summit. You can go to smartcourse.io/ADHD-summit, or you can just go to smartcourse.io and you'll see links to the summit. To get in contact with me, I would connect on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most present. My email inbox is a complete nightmare, so I will not share that.
Yes. Right.
But yeah, I love interacting with people on LinkedIn. If you're into startups, also on the Y Combinator Startup School forum, and yeah.
That's great. And I think there's another interesting thing we talked about is, Adrien, you're a big believer in LinkedIn. And what I find is a lot of folks in your generation don't use that. They're on Snapchat and Instagram and some other things, but it's a wonder. You told me it's a wonderful tool that helps you kind of not only learn what's going on, but also put your name out there in a professional setting. So
Yeah,
another tip is to please use LinkedIn. Can be very helpful.
100%. Yeah, I mean, people in like, I try to convince everyone in my generation to get on it, because they're like, no, like, I don't get it, I don't
It's
want it, or like,
boring.
Twitter is enough or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, Twitter is great too if you're an academic, and for certain industries it's really great. But LinkedIn is by far the most powerful when it comes to just like seeing the types of people that you want to connect with and being able to like batch that. Like, for example, when we're looking for ADHD coaches, right? All I have to do is search ADHD coaches, and now I see like every single person. I can filter by first degree connection. I can filter by second or more.
Yep.
I mean, it's like, it's so useful. And if you're looking for a job, I mean, you want to reach out to your employer beforehand and connect with them on LinkedIn, and
Yep.
start that relationship as good as you can.
Yep. Hey, you know what? Thank you so much. Let me No BS sales team, I hope you've enjoyed this today. I hope you've gotten a lot from Adrien. He's a super smart guy. He's fun to talk to. And I've learned a ton talking to him. Please check out his conference if ADHD is something you're interested in. I'll have the link in the show notes. Please go there. Also, if you are in sales or you're running a sales team or you're the owner of a company and you're thinking to yourself, damn it, our sales team doesn't have it, or we're not sure we're doing the right things, or all of a sudden we have a new competitor in the marketplace and they're kicking our ass, we got to figure out what to do, reach out to me, Walker at walkermckay.com. Let's have a quick no BS conversation and see if I'm somebody you can help. So reach out. Adrien, Harrison, thank you so much for taking the time. It's a hugely busy week for you. I appreciate your carving out the time for us. And I hope your conference is very successful and a lot of people from the No BS Sales School do come and watch and participate.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Walker. It was a pleasure.
Ton of fun. Thank you.